He gave away the only meal he had to two complete strangers, and the very next day, a millionaire knocked on his door. You ever hear a story so simple, so profoundly human, that it makes you stop and ask yourself what you'd do in the same moment? It all began on a brisk afternoon in Toledo, Ohio. 13-year-old Jordan Miles sat quietly on the edge of a weather-beaten bench outside the Greyhound station. His sneakers were falling apart at the seams, the soles curling up at the toes, and his backpack slumped beside him, weighed down by everything he had. Inside it, wrapped tightly in foil, was the only warm meal he'd have that day. Jordan wasn't one to complain. His mom worked back-to-back shifts at a nursing home, and his dad, laid off from the auto plant years ago, picked up odd jobs whenever he could. Money had always been a struggle. Some weeks, it stretched. Other weeks, it snapped. But Jordan moved through the world quietly, like he didn't want to draw attention to how hard things were at home. Across from him, an elderly couple shuffled in slowly, their hands fumbling through pockets in search of loose change. The woman's coat was missing buttons, patched up with mismatched fabric. Her husband leaned on the railing beside her, his breath labored, his face worn by more than just the cold. They weren't just random strangers. They were someone's grandparents, and it didn't take much to see they hadn't had a proper meal in a while. Jordan watched as they laid their change on the counter inside a small diner by the station. The cashier glanced down, let out a tired sigh, and gently pushed the coins back toward them. Not enough. The couple exchanged a glance, one of those deep, wordless looks built on years of surviving tough breaks together, and began slowly collecting their change, their movements heavy with quiet shame. Jordan looked down at his meal, still warm in its foil wrap. It wasn't a feast, just a sandwich, a bag of chips, and a juice box his mom had packed for him that morning. To him, it was precious. But to them, it might be a lifeline. His stomach growled, but something inside him, stronger than hunger, spoke louder. He stood. His knees felt shaky, but he walked straight over to them and placed the meal on the table. "Here," he said gently. "You can have mine." The older man blinked in surprise. "Son, no, we can't take that from you." Jordan gave a faint smile. "It's all right. I'll be okay." Tears welled in the woman's eyes. She reached for his hand, her voice trembling. "You're an angel, sweetheart." Jordan just gave a little shrug and stepped back. No fuss, no spotlight. He didn't want attention. He just wanted them to eat. What Jordan didn't know was that someone nearby had been watching, and that quiet act of compassion was about to trigger a chain of events that would lead someone to his doorstep less than a day later. This wasn't the kind of knock that brought bad news. It was the kind that could change everything. Inside the diner, the couple sat motionless for a moment, almost in disbelief. The sandwich was simple. The chips were generic. But to them, it was a banquet. The old man's hand trembled slightly as he unwrapped the foil. "Son," he said again, his voice catching in his throat, "you don't know what this means to us." Jordan shifted awkwardly. He didn't like the fuss. "It's just food," he mumbled. "Don't worry about it." The woman reached out again, gently resting her fingers on his wrist. "No, child, it's not just food. It's kindness. And people forget how powerful that can be." Other patrons had started to take notice. A man in a baseball cap leaned over and muttered, "That kid's got more heart than most folks twice his age." A woman by the coffee station whispered to the cashier, "You don't see things like that anymore." Jordan felt his cheeks flush. Not wanting a crowd, he slung his backpack over his shoulder and turned to leave. "Wait," the old man called after him. But Jordan just raised a hand in a quiet wave and slipped out into the cold. As he walked toward the bus stop, the emptiness in his stomach clenched tighter. That meal would have kept him going for the day, but now it was gone. He pressed a hand against his belly and ignored the ache. His mother's voice echoed in his head. "Son, you can go a day without food, but don't ever go through life with an empty heart." "I'll be okay," he whispered to himself. What he didn't know was that, back inside the diner, someone else had seen it all, a woman sitting alone at a table near the window. She didn't look like anyone special, just a coat, a scarf, and a kind of quiet dignity that turned heads. Her name was Ruth Wallace, a retired teacher from the neighborhood who'd always believed that small kindnesses were worth remembering. She pulled out her phone and typed a message, short but full of purpose. By the time Jordan boarded his bus, that message had already begun traveling far beyond anything he could have imagined. But this story wasn't about a hungry boy riding a bus home. No, that was just the beginning. By sunrise the next day, word of the boy in the diner had started weaving its way through the city, not through headlines or viral videos, but in the way stories travel best, from one person to another. Ruth told her neighbor. That neighbor mentioned it during Bible study. Someone else passed it along in line at the grocery store. And every time it was shared, it gained a little more weight. The boy who had nothing gave everything. Meanwhile, Jordan had no clue. To him, it was just another morning. He tugged on his faded hoodie, knotted the laces on his fraying sneakers, and grabbed his backpack. His mom, Danielle, was already gone, working another double shift at the nursing home. His dad, Andre, had left early too, out trying to land some day labor work. Jordan opened the fridge. A few half-empty containers stared back, some milk, a jar of mustard, and a little leftover rice in a chipped bowl. He sighed, closed the door, and headed out. No breakfast, no complaint. At school, Jordan took his usual seat in the back row, quiet, unassuming. Around him, his classmates joked about the latest TikToks, sneakers they couldn't afford, and songs stuck in their heads. But Jordan? He mostly stayed silent. Even his closest friend didn't hear a word about what happened at the diner. To Jordan, it wasn't something to brag about. It wasn't a story at all. It was just what you're supposed to do when you see someone struggling. Meanwhile, across town, Ruth Holt's message had found its way to a man named Marcus Langford, a lawyer who often volunteered at local food pantries. Marcus knew someone who didn't typically concern himself with community affairs. His client, Elliot Crane, was a wealthy man tucked away in a gated estate on the outskirts of town. People described Elliot in different ways. Some called him stingy, others said he was simply withdrawn. Either way, he wasn't known for making surprise appearances. But something about the boy in Ruth's message stuck with Marcus. He couldn't stop thinking about the image of a kid with nothing giving away his only meal. It lingered. So, the next time Elliot walked into Marcus's office, flipping casually through real estate files, Marcus decided to bring it up. "You hear about the kid at the Greyhound diner yesterday?" Marcus asked, leaning forward. Elliot looked up with a mild frown. "What kid?" Marcus told him, not like a lawyer retelling facts, but like a man repeating something that had settled in his heart. And when he finished, Elliot didn't say a word at first. He just stared at the floor, his fingers tapping slowly on the chair's armrest. Then, without looking up, he said, "Find out where that boy lives." Marcus blinked. "Wait, you're serious?" Elliot looked him dead in the eye. Very serious. But this wasn't about generosity, not yet. Something in that story had stirred a memory Elliot hadn't faced in years. Something personal. Later that day, with the sun slipping lower over the rooftops, Jordan sat on the porch steps of his family's duplex on Hamilton Street. The house leaned slightly to the left, the paint flaking off in patches. Gutters sagged with last fall's leaves. Inside, the air carried a mix of laundry detergent and leftover fried onions from dinner the night before. His little sister Tiana was curled on the couch, coloring in a lined notebook with a worn-down crayon. Jordan bounced his foot lightly off the porch step, his stomach still grumbling from the day before, when a sharp knock hit the front door. It wasn't the friendly kind of knock you hear from a neighbor. It was firm, purposeful. Tiana's head popped up. "Who is it?" she whispered. Jordan stood, wiped his hands on his hoodie, and cautiously opened the door. Standing on the porch was a tall man in a dark overcoat. His silver hair was neatly combed, his shoes gleamed like mirrors, and his whole presence seemed foreign against the peeling wood and wobbly railings. "Good afternoon," the man said, his tone calm and steady. "I'm looking for Jordan Miles." Jordan blinked. That's me. The man studied him briefly, then continued. My name is Elliot Crane. I heard about what you did yesterday. At the diner. Jordan felt his chest tighten. What do you mean? Elliot's mouth curled into a quiet, knowing smile. The meal you gave away, to that elderly couple. Don't be surprised. Word gets around. Behind Jordan, Tiana peeked out from behind his elbow. Who's that? She whispered. Elliot crouched slightly, so they were eye to eye. Just a friend. Someone who'd like to talk to your brother. From inside, their father's voice rang out, low and tired. Jordan, who's at the door? Some man, Jordan called back nervously. Moments later, Andre appeared, his work jacket slung over one arm, grease still smudged on his hands. He took one look at the stranger and immediately sized him up, suspicion in his eyes. And you are? He asked. Elliot extended his hand. Elliot Crane. I came to speak with you and your son. I heard about Jordan's kindness. It moved me more than I can explain. Andre didn't take the handshake. He folded his arms tightly. We don't know you, and we're not interested in any trouble. Elliot nodded, unbothered. I'm not here for that. I'm here to repay a debt I've carried for a very long time. Your son reminded me of something I thought I'd forgotten. The doorway fell silent. Andre shifted slightly, still guarded, but curious now. Jordan looked from his father to the stranger on their porch. Elliot's voice softened. Please. 5 minutes. That's all I ask. Andre hesitated, then slowly stepped aside, still tense. 5 minutes, he said. No more. Elliot nodded respectfully and stepped inside. His polished shoes tapped lightly against the worn linoleum floor. He looked around. A sagging couch, a flickering lamp, and the faint scent of damp in the walls. Tiana climbed back onto the couch, clutching her crayon tightly, her big eyes tracking Elliot's every move. Jordan hovered near the door, unsure whether to sit or stand. Elliot carefully draped his coat over the back of a chair and turned to face them. I don't make house calls, he said. Truth is, I haven't stepped into anyone else's home in years. But what your son did yesterday, it hit me hard. Andre narrowed his eyes. With all due respect, Mr. Crane, kids give up their lunch sometimes. It's kind, yes, but why are you here? Elliot leaned in slightly, his eyes now focused squarely on Jordan. Kindness hits different when you don't have much to give, Elliot said quietly. I know what it feels like to sit at a table with an empty stomach and act like you're not starving. His voice caught, old memories surfacing in the silence. Your son reminded me of a younger version of myself. He glanced at Jordan. A long time ago, a stranger fed me when I had nothing. I promised myself if I ever got the chance, I'd repay that moment. Yesterday, I saw my chance. Jordan swallowed hard, his voice barely audible. I didn't do it for anything. They just needed it more than I did. Elliot's smile was small but genuine. Exactly why it matters. He reached into his briefcase, pulled out a neatly folded envelope, and placed it gently on the coffee table. This is for you, he said, looking directly at Andre. Andre narrowed his eyes, already bracing. What's in it? Elliot held his gaze. Not charity, he said firmly. An opportunity. A scholarship fund, in Jordan's name. Enough to cover any school he chooses, anywhere. No debt, no conditions. No strings. The room fell into an eerie stillness. Even Tiana paused, her crayon hovering above the page. Outside, the buzz of passing cars seemed to dim, as if the world itself was holding its breath. Andre let out a slow, almost disbelieving whistle. That's a lot. We don't take handouts. Elliot shook his head. This isn't a handout. It's a long overdue investment. In a boy who understands what it means to give, even when he has almost nothing. Money's easy to lose. But character like his? That's rare. And I'd be foolish to ignore it. Jordan glanced over at his dad, then back at Elliot. Why me? He asked softly, voice cracking just a bit. Elliot's eyes softened. Because you remind me of the boy I once was. And because the world needs more people like you. People who deserve open doors, not closed ones. Andre rubbed at his temples, torn. Pride and fear tangling inside him like two sides of the same coin. I need time to think, he muttered. Elliot nodded and stood, slipping his coat back over his shoulders. Of course. Take whatever time you need. I'll come by tomorrow. Just know, this isn't about pity. It's about respect. He reached for the door, but paused, looking at Jordan one last time. Don't ever underestimate the power of one small act, he said. It can shift the path of a life. Sometimes even more than one. And with that, he stepped out, the door closing softly behind him. Inside, the silence clung to the walls. Jordan sat down slowly, staring at the envelope like it might explode if touched. Tiana tilted her head. Was that man rich? She whispered. Andre exhaled, rubbing a tired hand over his face. Rich doesn't even cover it, baby girl. That man's got more money than this whole block combined. Then why'd he come here? She asked. That's what I'm trying to figure out, Andre muttered, picking up the envelope. He turned it over in his hands, but didn't open it. Not yet. It felt too heavy. Too real. Jordan broke the silence. Dad, he seemed genuine. I don't think he was lying. Andre looked at him, eyes full of conflict. Son, people like that don't just show up to help out of the blue. Not without wanting something in return. That's just the way the world works. But he said it was no strings attached, Jordan replied, a flicker of defiance in his voice. Andre sighed and dropped onto the couch, his voice low, saying something's easy. Living with the fallout? That's harder. That night, when Danielle finally got home from her shift, still wearing her scrubs, Andre explained everything. Her purse hit the counter with a thud, but the moment she heard a millionaire stopped by, sleep vanished from her eyes. And what came into our house? She asked, almost laughing in disbelief. And he wants to pay for Jordan's education? Andre nodded slowly. That's what he said. Danielle looked at her son. Her tough exterior softened as she spoke. What you did at that diner, baby, that was beautiful. But your dad's right, we don't know this man, or what he really wants. Jordan shifted in his seat. I didn't do it to get anything. I couldn't let them go hungry. Danielle brushed his cheek gently. And that's what makes you special. But sometimes, when you act from the heart, unexpected people show up. People who see it. They argued for hours that night, long after dinner would have been, long after bedtime. The envelope sat unopened on the coffee table like a silent witness to the debate. Andre paced the living room, frustrated. I won't let some stranger walk in here and make us feel like we're desperate. We've made it this far on our own. Danielle pushed back. And what if this isn't about desperation? What if this is the moment we've been praying for? We talk about wanting more for our kids. What if this is it? Jordan sat quietly through it all, his hands folded, his thoughts racing. He wanted to believe Elliot. He wanted to believe that doing the right thing could lead to something good. But he also heard the worry in his father's voice. And it planted doubt. That night, lying in bed, sleep wouldn't come. The wind whistled against the window, the frame rattling gently. His stomach ached from another skipped dinner, but that wasn't what kept him awake. It was that envelope. Still sealed. Still waiting. Could one moment really change everything? Morning would bring answers. And Elliot's return. But nothing could prepare them for what he'd say next. The next afternoon, right on time, Elliot Crane's black sedan pulled up to the curb. It gleamed like it had never seen a speck of dust. Neighbors peeked out from behind curtains, craning their necks to get a look. A man like that didn't just show up on Hamilton Street without making people talk. Inside the house, Andre squared his shoulders and opened the door before Elliot even had the chance to knock. Come in, he said, his tone tight. We've been talking. Elliot stepped inside, removing his coat with quiet care. Danielle handed him a glass of water without a word. Jordan stood near the couch, nerves buzzing just beneath his skin. Andre didn't dance around it. Look, Mr. Crane, he began. We appreciate what you're offering. Really. But this all feels too fast, too big. I need to understand what's really behind it. Elliot met his eyes, then turned his attention to Jordan. That's a fair question, he said. And you deserve the truth. He sat down, his voice dropping lower, the weight of memory softening his words. I wasn't born into money, he said. My father walked out when I was young. My mother worked herself sick just trying to keep food on the table. Some nights, we went to bed with nothing in our stomachs but hope. He paused. One night, I sat outside a diner, starving. A stranger, someone I'd never seen before, walked out and handed me his meal. No speech, no strings, just quiet compassion. I never saw him again. But that moment, it stayed with me. I made a promise to myself. If I ever had the chance, I'd pass that kindness on. Elliot looked at Jordan. And yesterday, when I heard about what your son did, I knew. He's the kind of boy I used to be. And I won't let this moment pass me by. The room was still. Danielle blinked back tears. Andre stared at the floor, locked in an invisible battle with his pride. Jordan's voice broke through, soft as a breath. You're doing all this because of a promise? Elliot nodded. Yes, but there's one thing I need to know first. He reached into his coat and pulled out a checkbook. Jordan, he said, I want you to decide. I can write a check right now. Enough to pay for your education, your future. No strings. But if you don't want it, if something about this feels wrong, I'll walk out that door and never bring it up again. Jordan's throat tightened. He looked from his father, still guarded, to his mother, quietly hopeful, then down at his little sister. Take it, Jordan, Tiana whispered. He turned back to Elliot, voice shaking. Can I ask something first? Elliot leaned forward. Of course. Why me? Jordan asked. There are kids out there who have it worse. Families barely hanging on. Why not them? Elliot exhaled, jaw clenching before he spoke. Because I didn't meet them. I met you. Life isn't fair, Jordan. Opportunity doesn't show up in perfect patterns. But when it does show up, you take it. And you use it to lift others when you can. His words hung in the air like a stone dropped in still water. Jordan turned to his dad, then to his mom, and finally, back to the man who'd stepped into their world from nowhere. If I say yes, he said, I promise, I'll earn it. I'll make it matter. For the first time, Howard's face broke into a real smile. That's all I needed to hear. He clicked his pen open and wrote the check without hesitation, then slid it across the coffee table. Jordan stared at it, his fingers hovering just above the paper. They trembled. Andre cleared his throat. His voice was quieter now. Go ahead, son, he said. This isn't about us. It's about you. Jordan picked it up. When he saw the number, his breath caught in his chest. It was more money than his family had ever touched at once. His mind filled with images, groceries stocked in the fridge, shoes that actually fit Tiana's feet, his mom coming home before the sky turned black, and maybe a future that didn't feel like a locked door. Danielle reached for his hand. Thank you, Mr. Crane, she whispered. I don't even know how to begin to say it. Elliot stood, slipping back into his coat. Don't thank me, he said. Thank your son. His heart opened this door. I'm just helping keep it open. He turned to Jordan. Remember what I said. This isn't just for you. It's so you can help others, too. I will, Jordan said, his voice steady. I promise. Elliot extended a hand to Andre once more. And this time Andre took it. Their handshake was strong. Not just agreement, but understanding. And then Elliot stepped back into the fading light, his car purring quietly as it disappeared down the street. The Mileses stood still for a long moment, the weight of what just happened settling around them like fresh snow. Then Tiana broke the silence. So, does this mean we're rich now? Laughter bubbled through the room, light and unexpected. For the first time in days, maybe even weeks, something lifted. Andre ruffled her hair. Not rich, baby girl. But maybe life just got a little lighter. That night, as Jordan lay in bed, he found himself thinking about the couple at the diner. He wondered if they made it home okay, if they remembered the sandwich. Because he did. That one small choice, not just to share, but to see someone else's hunger, had changed everything. He whispered into the dark, repeating something his mom always told him. You can go hungry for a day, but you can't walk through life with a hungry heart. And in that quiet moment, he understood. This wasn't the end. This was the beginning. Because sometimes, the smallest act of kindness becomes the spark for a miracle. And maybe that's the lesson worth carrying. You never know who's watching. And you never know whose life might change because of one simple, selfless choice. If this story moved you, let it remind you, kindness is power. Thank you for watching. Subscribe me and hit the notification bell to not miss new stories. Bye.